Sure it's working.
Yeah, it's looking
Okay.
good.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to the OpenWallet Foundation Member Town Hall for January 23, 2025. As with all Linux Foundation meetings, this is held under the Linux Foundation competition policy. If you have any questions about these matters, please contact your company counsel, or if you're a member of the Linux Foundation, feel free to contact Andrew Updegrove of the firm Gesmer Updegrove LLP, which provides legal counsel to the Linux Foundation. In addition, this is held on the Linux Foundation Code of Conduct, which can best be summed up as be excellent to each other. I will be sharing links throughout the town hall today, so I'll give you a link for this in about a second. And now I'm going to turn it over to Daniel Goldschleider, the Executive Director of the OpenWallet Foundation.
Thank you very much, Sean. It's good to see you. We've just come off from a few incredibly busy days at the World Economic Forum in Davos. I'm excited to tell you a little more about that, but want to take the opportunity first just to welcome everyone who is here. This is really important. We are nothing without our members. The OpenWallet Foundation is essentially just a safe space for you. So we're really happy that we're growing in terms of members. You'll hear from Esther about new members and from Tracy about the update on our technical achievements in 24. And I'm also going to be telling you a little bit about what happened in Davos this week and give you an outlook for the OpenWallet Forum, our sister organization at the United Nations, and the working groups and the Geneva conference that we're planning together. So welcome again. And with that, Tracy, I'd like to turn to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel. So my name is Tracy Kurt, and I am the Technical Advisory Council Chair for the OpenWallet Foundation. I'm also an Associate Director at Accenture. So we are premier members of the OpenWallet Foundation and have been since the beginning. So very happy to serve as that chair. And yeah, really want to talk to you today about kind of the accomplishments and the achievements that we've had over the past year in 2024. Specifically focused in on the technical community. So Sean, if you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide. So I've presented this to the TAC. I've also presented it to our governing board, but now I'm happy to present this as well to our members. So these are the accomplishments that we've had over 2024. Specifically, I focused these into three main topics. As you can see, the governance of the technical community, the projects that we do have within the technical community, as well as in general, the community itself and what the community has been up to. So as we look at this, on the governance side, we've obviously been working to update and add new governance for our technical community. So we have added a security vulnerability disclosure policy in 2024. So this is really focused on how do we make sure that our projects have a vulnerability disclosure policy so that if you find anything in their projects as you are using them, you maybe find something as you're looking at the code. This is the mechanism that you would report any sort of security issues that you have. Obviously, any issues that you might find, you can report through the GitHub issues, but security issues are handled slightly differently because we may not want everybody to be able to have immediate visibility in those. And so that's what the security vulnerability disclosure policy is all about. We have also then updated or added a deliverables lifecycle. So the community special interest groups that we have, they have been hard at work putting together deliverables for you. And part of that obviously is how do we make sure that those special interest groups know how they need to go about creating those deliverables and adding those to GitHub and potentially releasing those as well. The next few that we have here, the next two, I guess it is the project state change process and the annual review template. So if we look at these are specifically new, not new, but updates to existing governance documents that we had. So specifically, one of the projects that we had came to us and said, okay, we were a lab, now we want to be an impact project. How do we move from a lab to an impact project? And we didn't really have that spelled out very well in our documentation, and so we added that specifically so that people in the future who wanted to do that could make that happen. We also had an annual review policy that we had introduced initially, but we didn't have a template for what we wanted to include in that annual review. And so now projects, when they hit their 1 year mark, their 2 year mark, their 3 year mark, they put together an annual review, and they now have a template that they can use to provide us with information about how the project is actually going. We also introduced a content plan. So this content plan allows for people to know where they might find specific documents, where they might go to actually contribute to the community as far as Discord and things like that. And so that particular link is available for you in this document, and I'm sure Sean's put it out there as well. We did have some annual reviews actually completed for, let's see, 6 of 7 of our projects. I don't know, I can't count. But a number of our projects went through that process to let us know how they were doing. One of those actually resulted in, it was going to be a project that was archived, but somebody stepped up and said, you know what, I want to take that on and I want to contribute to that. And so really good information for people in the community to recognize what's going on in those projects. And so all of those annual reviews are available for people to take a look at. And then we also added 2 different project dashboards. These dashboards are for the impact and growth projects, and then also for the labs. As you may know, we have 2 separate GitHub organizations for those groupings. And so these dashboards basically look at when was the last time a project was committed to, how many forks does it have, how many stars does it have, how many open issues, pull requests, those sorts of things. So just getting a general sort of feel for how projects are doing. On the project front, we did add 1 impact project, 4 growth projects, and 9 new labs. Those are all listed here. I won't read those through, but each of those new projects should have a page on the TAC website, so tac.openwallet.foundation, to let you know what those particular projects are. I think the really interesting thing here is that we did have our very first impact project come into the OpenWallet Foundation. An impact project is one that we see being used out there in the community. People are using it for production type use cases. There's a number of, obviously maintainers and great support behind that. And so I think it's really great to see that. Obviously with the growth type projects, these are people who are looking to get to that impact state, right? They're looking to work with others in the community, get people interested in what they're doing, and have others participate. From the lab's perspective, these are new things that people are experimenting with, maybe new specifications that are currently in the middle of being written, and people want to try and implement those. Different sorts of reasons that people become a lab. But it really is a good place for people to understand what others are doing out there in the community. There's been a lot of discussion about, oh, you're doing this, I'm doing something similar, how can we work together? It's a really very useful sort of space for people to understand that others are interested in similar topics that they may be currently working on. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we did have the SD JavaScript that moved from labs to growth stage. And so that's also a very exciting sort of thing to see. We're seeing people in the OpenWallet Foundation community starting to use that project directly in their projects. And so that sort of cross-project collaboration is something that's very useful to see happening. From the community perspective, in 2024, we did add 1 new SIG, which is the Wallet Interoperability SIG. So they are meeting on a weekly basis, and you can find that information in the community calendar, which I'm sure Sean will provide a link to. We also had a couple of our other SIGs present or create some deliverables. The Wallet Safety Guide exists. We also have an architecture white paper that exists. We have some web pages specifically focused on digital wallets and agents overview and the credential format comparison, although those two have since been combined since 2024, but those are out there. We also did a couple of Ask Me Anythings with specifically the wallet overview SIG and the safety wallet SIG. We had a workshop on the technical standards underpinning the ARF. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but my understanding is that was a very well-received workshop, and you know, a lot of good sort of collaboration started in that workshop. So really happy to see that sort of work happening in the community as well. And then obviously we had our first year anniversary back in February. We're almost up to 2 years now. And we did have a first year anniversary webinar that's available for you. So at this point, we now have 20, well, at the point at which this was written, I should say, we have 24 total projects with 1 impact, 6 growth projects, and 17 labs. So lots of work being done in the technical community, not only with projects and labs, but also with the special interest groups. So Sean, if we can move on to the next slide. We also had a retrospective with the TAC about what went well, what could we do better, and different sorts of recommendations. I probably won't drain this slide just because I think I've probably talked longer than I should have already. But I think, you know, some of the interesting things here are the consistency that we have in our processes and the roles means that there's no real surprises for our TAC members and people that are attending the TAC calls. I talked about our first impact stage project and our first project moving from labs to growth. These are all things that really, you know, helps people understand that the community is growing and, you know, things are happening here. Things that we could do better, I think, talking out loud about what we're doing. And maybe this is one of those steps in doing that. But I think, you know, also the newsletters that Sean has started putting out is a good mechanism for that. Putting together some dashboards and metrics that are more comprehensive, maybe using the LFX Insights tool might be something that we look at in 2025. This whole separation of GitHub organizations is something that is a concern, and so we might take a look at how we might improve that and do things differently. Obviously, we want more participation in our special interest groups. So if you are interested in any of the special interest groups that we have, those are open for all of you to attend, and I invite you to do that. And then obviously more workshops, webinars, more events, you know, really looking at creating some checklists and best practices for our projects. So those are the sorts of things that I think we'll be spending some time on in 2025. And with that, I think that's my time. Oh, you can include these obviously with the slides, but these are just the short descriptions for each of the impact, growth, and labs projects that we had at the end of 2024. So yeah, when you get the slides, you can obviously look here, or as I said earlier, on the TAC website.
And I shared the TAC website URL in chat, and those chat links will be shared with everybody in an email after the fact. Thank you, Tracy.
Sean, I know that we have questions at the end, but if there's any question for Tracy about the projects and the technology review of 24, please feel free to put it in the chat or just unmute and ask.
It's everyone here is a member, so by all means, feel free to unmute and ask a question. There is a raise hand function in Zoom, which I can't see because I'm running the call, but David Alexander has his hand raised. Go ahead.
I have no questions, but I do want to do a shout out to Tracy and Sean because I go to most of the special interest group meetings and the TAC as an associate member, and they are really well run. And we get through stuff, and the momentum and clarity is really good, as is the engagement from the people that attend. Yes, we want more people, and we're joining the dots across the SIGs and the TACs. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, David.
But before we move on, does anyone else have a question for Tracy?
If that's not the case, we have the pleasure to introduce you to our new PMO, Esther Garcia, who is here with us. And I'm really thrilled, Esther, that you can introduce yourself to our members and give a quick update on membership.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Esther Garcia. I'm from Spain. I'm based in Madrid. And as Daniel said, I'm the new program manager of OpenWallet Foundation. And also involved with other projects in Europe, like Open Mobile Hub. I'm working in the European Charter of the Linux Foundation, so it's the Linux Foundation Europe as a chief of the staff. All my expertise has been always connected with operation and company growth. So I'm super excited to be here supporting OpenWallet Foundation. And I can't wait to help the project and the community in general to continue to the growth that they have with stability and with solid foundation with this operation membrane that I have. So thank you everyone for welcoming me in this project. And now to give you a quick update about the different members, we are super happy to announce that we are finalizing the engagement of MasterCard as a premier member. We are in the last stage of the paperwork, so I think we will be finalizing everything very soon. We will be able to welcome them. We are super happy with this join to the project, and we are very confident that they are an excellent addition to the foundation, and we wanted to share that with all of you. And in the general members tiers, we are also a new member that is iLabs Technologies. We have started the onboarding of this new member today. So I'm not sure if they are around today, but most likely they will start participating in the upcoming community meetings or even in the next town halls very soon. And then additionally, we have some open application in the associate members. We are waiting for them to provide additional information on why they want to be part of the OpenWallet Foundation. So we will keep you posted in that as soon as we have more information and we evaluate these applications. And we will let you know if we have new associate members when it's finalized. And this is all from the members update side. So do you have any question, or you can put it on the chat and we'll review it at the end, whatever you prefer.
Feel free to raise your hand or ask a question of Esther if you've got one. Here we go, David.
Just some stats. I love stats. In terms of total membership by category of membership, do we have numbers on that?
Yeah, we have the premier members that they are part of, by far of the governing board, and then we have the general members that they have election to be part of the governing board, and then we have the associate members that they can also be part with election that we are running right now to get them in the governing board as well.
Yeah, I understand the membership structure. I was just wondering the total quantity of members that have been recruited during 2024.
That I have to review it, because as we are still in the renewal season, we have to verify the final numbers. But they can do it and share it in the next call we have.
Okay.
Great. If there are no further questions, I think, Sean, you're next with a community update.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you, Daniel. I'm the person driving and it's not working. Hi, my name is Sean Bohan. I'm a community architect with the Linux Foundation. My history in working on these projects dates back to 2017. The team I was working with contributed a couple of projects to what was then Hyperledger, is now Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, and one of them was Hyperledger Aries, which was pretty great. From a community update perspective, since our last town hall, there's been just a tremendous amount of things that have happened, way too many for a couple of slides. But I'm going to go through it really quickly. We have launched in wallet interoperability SIG, which we're super excited about. This is actually the old Aries working group, which used to be part of Hyperledger. And when a number of Aries projects, specifically Occupy, Ascar, DIDComm Mediator, and the test harness moved over to the OpenWallet Foundation, those communities specifically said, hey, we have this great thing we do every week where we all get together and talk about issues. We want to bring that to OWF. And our response was, sounds good, but you got to open it up to everyone. And they've been incredible about this. The link here, and I'm going to share it in a second, takes you to the wiki page for the Wallet Interoperability SIG. They meet twice a week. Twice every week. The time shifts a little bit every other week just because of schedules. But the overall topics that we've been discussing aren't just the X-Aries projects. One of the most exciting things is a number of community members have gotten together to talk about DIDComm Mediator and how it's working across Aries and Bifold and Credo. A team from Ironworks, which has recently contributed Credible to the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, has been showing up at our meetings and talking about things that they need in their wallets. So we're super excited that we've expanded this past just the Aries community. It is open to everyone. I'm going on a charm offensive, emphasis on offensive. No, not really. After this week to reach out to the other projects, both labs and growth, and there's only one impact, to get folks to attend, to bring their issues, to talk about things that we're working on collectively that, hey, I saw a thing, maybe I can help with that. We want to build more of these bridges across the community and internally, which is going to make it a better place when new folks show up, and that's the goal. Real quick, digital wallets and agents overview. It's incredibly hard following Tracy on a deck like this because she's got all the good stuff. But digital wallets and agent overview, we want to thank Mirko for being so amazing in the community, for combining the wallets and agents overview as well as the credential format comparison SIG. We're going to start getting the word out about that. We want our projects to get their wallet listed in the wallet and agent overview database. We want to let folks know that these resources exist. They're fantastic public-driven resources, and we're super proud of all the work that the community's put into them. We want to make sure folks know about it. And then the architecture SIG. We have changed the format of the architecture SIG a little bit. We're moving away somewhat from the white paper that was being worked on in 2024 and collectively working half hour every Monday on a specific set of discrete discussions and topics and issues. And the link here is going to take you to those discussion topics. We recently talked about cloud wallets, and that conversation continues, and it's really going well. Thank you again to David Alexander for joining Tracy in co-chairing the architecture SIG. We think it's super important, and we're excited to see more community members attend. From a project perspective, we've had a ton of action since the last town hall. A couple of highlights, and all this stuff is in the newsletter, which I'm going to shamelessly promote between now and the end of this town hall. But the Credo team took home the 2024 Identity Innovation Award from ID Next. We wrote a blog post about that. Credo also did a video in the Wallet Interoperability SIG about their accomplishments in 2024, which was fantastic. There is a lot of work in cross-project DIDComm Mediator. Again, and this has been there is no, staff telling folks what to do. This came from the community. Folks were working on things together going, well, I use the same thing you're using. Well, hey, do you do this? No. Well, hey, can we work on that together? So we've got Bifold, Credo, Occupy, and LFDD credible teams rolling up their sleeves, talking about how these things work, how they can make them better, what's working in the EU. And then you've got teams who don't work in the EU at all, but they're still able to share their context. So we've been really happy with some of the action there. And then the Identity Credential Lab has been renamed to Multipos. Someone's got to file a PR to get that changed in GitHub, but super excited for that community. They are growing tremendously. In a recent TAC, which I will share in the links for this session as well, David from the TAC took everyone through the annual review of what's been going on with Identity Credential. It's really impressive, and that team is doing tremendous work. And then the last bit for the community update is where we're going to be in person in 2025. I'm currently working on a developer engagement plan, as well as working on some planning for future events. Next Saturday and Sunday, not this coming Saturday and Sunday, but Saturday and Sunday, February 1 and 2, we will be at FOSDEM. We will be hosting the Digital Wallets and Verifiable Credentials Dev Room. This is not an OpenWallet Foundation room. This is a FOSDEM room. We just happen to be helping out with the programming. There are some pretty amazing projects coming to this. folks working on the EU DI wallet and ARF, folks working on non-EU DI wallets, folks talking about zero-knowledge proofs and verifiable credentials in other contexts outside of OpenWallet Foundation. We're super excited to be participating in this. It's a half day on Sunday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at FOSDEM. If you're going to be there, please join us. We would love to see you. Daniel will be appearing at the EU Policy Summit on January 31st, Mobile World Congress on March 4th, and MOSIP Connect on March 11th. I'm speaking at IDM Europe on April 1st, and no, that is not an April Fool's joke. And then we are right now planning what we're doing around IIW in the spring and DICE, which is coming up, I believe, in June. We have a number of community members who attend DICE who do not go to IIW because DICE is set in Europe. So we're looking at how do we divide and conquer and do the best job for our community here. And my last slide, and I'm going to share these links in a second in chat. Check out the code. We have Open Wallet Foundation projects and Open Wallet Foundation labs. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, X. We have Open Wallet Foundation Discord, which is where most of our conversations are happening for lots of reasons, particularly in the open source ecosystem. Folks are using mailing lists less and less, Discord more and more. That's where we're having our chats, our one-on-one discussions. Hey, let's do a breakout. So that's really where the conversation at OWF is happening. And then learn more about what we do and make an impact. We've got a website. Check it out. We have ways of getting involved. And that's everything from participating in the SIG to writing documentation to contributing code to just raising your hand and saying, hey, I've got a problem. Subscribe and read to our newsletter. This goes out once a month. The next one's going out early next week. We are 3 issues in. And in this newsletter, we talk about the things that are happening around OWF land, as you've seen with some of the project updates and the community updates and the member updates. We get it all in there. And we just want to keep everybody in touch. It is one of many ways that we're doing it, but also it's more fodder for the blog. It gets the word out, which I mentioned, the blog. And then we have a YouTube channel. We don't have a ton of content in YouTube right now. I'm working with our individual projects, a couple of them who have more public meetings. DICE is not in June. Thank you, Samuel. Sorry, I made that mistake. March and September. We have a couple of projects that are considering maybe putting their team calls on YouTube. We do have a few videos on YouTube right now. The Wallets and Agent Overview, Ask Me Anything. The Safe Wallet SIG, Ask Me Anything. Our last town hall is up there. This town hall will go up there in about a month. So we're pretty excited about that. And lastly, our meeting calendar. We have meetings every week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't believe we have any meetings on Friday. The community gets together in different ways. We would love to see you attend. Any questions for me? And I want to point out to folks, I just got a note from Samuel. DICE is not in June, it's in March and September. That is my mistake. For some reason, I have June on the brain, but I will get that fixed. Thank you, Samuel.
It used to be in June.
It used to be in June. Yeah. What is time? Any questions for me before I move to the next section? Yes, I got it all done in 2 slides. I'm so proud of myself. Daniel, you're up.
Thank you very much, John. I sound probably a bit tired today, which is because I am. We had incredibly busy 48 hours in Davos, where we had 3 meetings and events. The first one was at the House of Switzerland. We invited all general and premier members to attend. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the World Economic Forum. It's probably the world's best public-private conference where, leaders from both governments, intergovernmental organizations, companies, and NGOs are coming together. And it's happening in a small alpine city in Switzerland, in Davos. And they are having a close partnership with the Swiss government, and the Swiss government has its own presence at the World Economic Forum. And this is where we hosted the first high-level panel event between the OpenWallet Foundation and the OpenWallet Forum. We have announced that and talked about it at previous events, but just as a quick refresher, the OpenWallet Forum is hosted at the ITU, just like the OpenWallet Foundation is hosted at the Linux Foundation. And together with ITU and the Swiss government, we were having our first high-level panel event. It was opened by the Swiss Minister of Justice and Police, who is responsible for the Swiss EID program, and Doreen Bogdan-Martin, the Secretary General of the ITU. And then I had the pleasure of moderating two panels with 9 speakers each. So we had 20 speakers and really amazing speakers. His Excellency Solly Malatsi, the minister from South Africa, was part of the first panel, not just representing South Africa, but also the presidency of the G20. His Excellency Arguir Patriota from Brazil was there, who, Brazil was the presidency before South Africa. And we had the president from EPFL, one of the 2 top universities here in Switzerland, and representatives from Samsung and from Visa and from Huawei, from Swisscom representing our general members. Alain Labrique, the chief digital officer of WHO, was there. So we were really super, super happy with that panel. And then we had a great second panel where we brought many of the world's leading standard development organizations together. Sergio, the CEO of ISO, the world's largest standard development organization, was on that panel together with Philippe, who is his counterpart at IEC. ITU was there, the CEO of W3C, the executive director of the OpenID Foundation and CCC and the CLIPS Foundation, and of course the Linux Foundation and EMVCO, the organization that is standardizing for the card space. So we really had a great panel on standards. And the main thrust was really to issue a call to action for global interoperability, really to bring essentially everyone together, countries and companies, intergovernmental organizations, standard development organizations, open source organizations, making a joint call to action that we need to work towards global interoperability. I really loved what Alain said, that this can literally save lives. It can be the difference between life and death, whether you have access to verifiable health credentials in a different country. And in some cases, it's probably not quite a life and death situation, but it's certainly important that you can prove your name or your identity, your citizenship, your date of birth, academic credentials, have access to driver's licenses anywhere in the world. And that's really something that we want to push, and we are incredibly grateful that so many people came to Davos. We had room for 60 people, and in the end we were about 80. We had about almost 100 people on the wait list that we told they couldn't come, and it was an absolutely packed room. And also some people in the audience were quite amazing. We had the honor of Sir Tim being in the audience, the inventor of the World Wide Web. It was really an amazing meeting, and I would very much encourage you to note the date already for the World Economic Forum next year. If you're anywhere near Davos, we're planning to do an even bigger event next year. Now, going forward and looking into the future, there are 2 exciting things that we're working on. The first one is we want to establish working groups between the OpenWallet Foundation and the OpenWallet Forum. And the idea is that essentially the foundation is going to bring in primarily people from the private sector, while the United Nations will primarily bring in people from the public sector. And we want to discuss things that cannot be easily or reasonably discussed within one standard development organization. If you have anything you want to change, I don't know, on SDJOTs, IETF is the right place to do that, of course. Conversely, if folks have comments on MDoc, they will probably do that within the ISO group, which is really where this conversation belongs. But we believe there are a number of conversations that really transcend any one standard. For instance, if you think about hardware requirements, what you want ideally from hardware OEMs in terms of biometric support, in terms of secure key storage, you couldn't have that conversation just confined for SDJOTs or W3C verifiable credentials or MDoc and MDL. It's really something that touches all credential formats. And so this is really where we see a huge opportunity to bring the standard development organizations, the countries via the United Nations, and of course the open source community via OpenWallet Foundation together to have these conversations. I think some of them are going to happen legally at the OpenWallet Foundation. If they're close to code and really related to open source projects, then they will be hosted at the OpenWallet Foundation, but the UN and the standard development organizations will basically promote that. If it's something that is relatively far away from code, some of those conversations might legally happen at the OpenWallet Forum. But the important thing is the OpenWallet Foundation is part of the governance structure of the forum. Wherever these conversations happen, they're really a joint activity between the public sector and the private sector. So please view this as an invitation to think about working groups that could really benefit from massive collaboration and involvement of the public sector. We want to suggest these working groups to the countries, to the GCC in the OpenWallet Forum. And we hope that this is going to be one of the ways by which we make the non-code projects a lot bigger and more strategic in 25. And then we have a second announcement that I'm really excited about. We are working on a conference that will most likely happen on July 2nd and 3rd in Geneva. And the place is going to be the CICG, the big international conference center in Geneva. And we have room for almost 2,000 people. And our hope is that we are going to convince a lot of government officials on the one side and a lot of private sector representatives on the other side to participate. We had conversations, for instance, with the large-scale pilots in Europe, and they're really excited about this conference. So we think that there will be several hundred people coming from the LSPs alone, but we will go, of course, way beyond Europe. One of the reasons why this conference is happening in Geneva is because we want to show that we really view wallets and digital credentials as a global opportunity. So we've invited the Ministry of Public Security in China, together with Ali and Tencent and Huawei, to talk about what's happening in China. The digital agency in Japan, as well as the TSA, the Department of Homeland Security in the United States, or Aadhaar from India, to talk about what they want to do in the verifiable credential space. There are a couple of really interesting projects there. So the goal is that when you are attending this conference, in the morning, you will basically get an overview of most of the relevant projects that are happening around the world. And in the afternoon, we're going to look at the same topic, but through a different lens. The lens is going to be use case specific in the afternoon. So for instance, what's happening in global health care, and WHO is going to present what they're working on with the global health community in terms of digital health credentials. We have invited eReg and AMVA and Ostroads to talk about everything that is happening globally around driver's licenses. We're going to invite ICAO to talk about e-passports. And the goal really is in the afternoon that, for most of the top use cases, basically, you're going to get a complete overview, not just from a geographical perspective, but from a functional or use case perspective. And then on day 2, we're going to have breakout rooms. And these breakout rooms will enable SIGs and working groups and projects to come together. Ideally, we want to encourage people to meet beyond the usual boundaries. Of course, it's always great for an ISO project or a FIDO project to meet, or for an OpenWallet project to meet. But we hope that this is going to be an opportunity for different projects to come together and share best practices, learn from each other, and really have conversations on how we can work together better than we are already doing. The conference is going to be completely free, both to attend as well as if you're invited to speak. There will be no pay-to-play, and the goal really is to bring all the important communities together. One of the meetings yesterday that we convened in private was a meeting with the SDOs, and there is a lot of excitement from the leading standard development organizations in this space to be co-organizers of that conference. So we're going to bring the Open Wallet community to the table. They're going to bring their communities to the table. And we really hope that it's going to be a big event, not just because we'll have room for 1,800 people, but big in terms of the impact on furthering public-private collaboration. So I'm really excited about that. I wished that Ruth Puente was here. She worked very hard on the meeting in Davos together with the Swiss government and ITU, and she really deserves a lot of the applause for the success of the meetings yesterday. But unfortunately, she's on a flight back from Switzerland to Spain, so she couldn't be here. But for the record, she did a really amazing job. If you have any questions about what happened in Davos or what we want to achieve with the working groups or with the conference, please feel free to ask questions now. Or, as always, feel free to send me an email. I'm always really excited to hear from members. And ultimately, as I said in the beginning, this is your show. We are just the convener. Our role is to bring folks together. But ultimately, this is something that you fill with life based on your priorities, on your needs, and on your hopes for the future.
Do we have any questions for Daniel? Yes, David Alexander, hand raised. David, are you muted? You are still muted, sir.
Apologies.
No
Daniel,
worries,
do we have dates for this event in Geneva yet?
Most likely, it's going to be July 2nd and 3rd. The reason for this slightly awkward date at the beginning of summer is that it's a few days after the annual meeting of the Bank of International Settlements and a few days before the largest tech conference of the United Nations called WISIS. So the pitch basically on the public sector side is for the central bankers to stay a little longer and for attendees, public attendees of WISIS to come a little earlier. And then basically for the private sector to join that meeting smack in the middle between the BIS meeting and WISIS. So July 2nd and 3rd. And we have reserved the CICG, the Centre International de Conférence à Genève, I think is what it's called, the big conference center in Geneva.
Brilliant. Thank you.
David, it would be great if you pencil this in your calendar already. We really hope that the Open Wallet community is going to be there in force. Obviously some of the communities will overlap. So some folks will get an invitation from the FIDO Alliance, I hope, and from the OpenID Foundation and W3C and the ISO community, as well as from Open Wallet. But I think that's actually great. If people hear from different organizations that this is the conference to go, hopefully it's going to be even bigger and even better than what any one of us could do alone.
The diary is currently adjustable to accommodate. So I'll put it.
That is perfect.
Samuel, you've got a question.
Yeah, sure. Daniel mentioned that there was in Davos discussion about the kind of things that are common to all standards or ecosystems, but the examples you mentioned were pretty much technical, like key storage and stuff like that. How about softer infrastructure like liability or credential rule books or kind of ecosystem governance and stuff like that? Any interest in kind of coming together from different standards organizations or from different governments to discuss about these kind of software topics?
That's a really brilliant question. Thank you very much for asking it. And the answer is absolutely yes. The idea is for all implementers to have a safe space to come together and to collaborate. This includes obviously technical conversations as well as requirements conversations that are probably not as technical, as well as conversations that really have nothing to do with technology at all. Gail Hodges from the OpenID Foundation was one of the executive directors taking part in our event in Davos, and she's one of the driving forces of a project called City Hub. And they've done a lot of work on things that have really, very little technical bearings, but that are very interesting. For instance, an overview of trust frameworks. And the idea is that this is going to be part of that conference and part of those working groups as well. And really, any idea you have where you feel that this should be discussed outside of the traditional confines of an existing standard development organization or one open source project, by all means, please suggest that and suggest who you might want to bring into this conversation initially. Feel free to say who you would like to have at the table in an ideal world, even if you don't have contacts. We'll try to make these working groups happen and to make them as exciting as possible.
Yeah, thanks. The reason I asked was that in Findinet, we kind of see our role as kind of facilitators of both the technical and hard infrastructure via interop profiles and making sure that the technology works together, but also the facilitator for software infrastructure and to make it easy for ecosystems to kind of have templates for their rule books or common agreement about data privacy or stuff like that. And we are mostly kind of doing that work here in Finland with the Finnish scope, but we would much like to work with other organizations who are also thinking about this in other countries. So I understand that, for example, in Switzerland, there might be a kind of party we could interact with or kind of make sure that the Finnish rule books or governance models or privacy requirements for wallet providers or for credential agent providers would be similar. And so that's a wish from me that there would be a way to find these different organizations who also are interested in these topics and would like to have international cross-border interoperability, both on the technical and the governance side of things.
Yeah, I think everything you say, Samuel, is music to my ears. You know that I'm a big fan of what you're doing in Finland, and I think where the OpenWallet Foundation and the OpenWallet Forum now and the collaboration with the SDOs can excel is not to try and do a better job than Findinet, nationally, but really to do exactly what you say, to bring folks together on a global perspective and to hopefully help people both nationally as well as for cross-border transactions. We see opportunities to learn from each other, to share best practices that will even help on a national or local level. But then we also think that there is a huge opportunity to further collaboration and cooperation between different countries and in some cases between different use cases.
You've got about 7 minutes left in this town hall. Does anyone else have a question for Daniel? Or Esther or myself or Tracy? It's open Q&A time for everybody. David Alexander, you got your hand raised. Go right ahead.
My favorite question, Daniel. Is there anything we should have asked you that we didn't?
That's a really nice question. Well, I love the questions that were asked. I think one question that we want to ask you is what can we do better? And I think, Sean mentioned that before. We're always looking for feedback. So if I can turn that question around, please let us know, whether it's in a town hall or via email, where you think we should double down, and we were going to be really happy to get that feedback. We had a good first step, I think, in that regard with a survey that Sean did for the code projects. Asking the projects what they're most excited about, what they want to do, where they want support from the OpenWallet Foundation, what are the events that they're planning to go to. We will try to do that, more, and really listen to our members as well as to our developers, and understand where they want us to go. In terms of what you should have asked, we've tried to cover most of the bases. I'm sure we have forgotten some things. Maybe one question you should ask is, when will the next town hall be? And I think, Sean, the answer to that question would be, we try to do it quarterly.
Yes. So we do not have a date for the next town hall, but I would say probably the second or third week of the month of April is probably a good shot. And then we can talk about all the things we've been doing in February and March and parts of January. So that should be exciting.
So maybe another good question, David, would be, do you think you should communicate the dates for town hall meetings earlier than you did in the past? And if you had asked that question, I would say, yes, we should. We will try to communicate the date for the next meeting ASAP.
I think the agenda being shared with the date, in terms of rough outline and who will be talking, I think also piques interest.
Good point.
Cool. We can. I mean, the agenda we had today is it's a great point, David. But the agenda we had today is kind of going to be the same. It's what's going on with technology, what's going on with the members, what's going on with the community. So it's going to have a pretty standard cadence. But I think it's what's in the slides, not the order of them. But yeah, we can definitely do that in advance. And once we set, I'll talk to Daniel and the team and staff about the date for the next town hall, and we'll make that part of the invite, letting folks know, hey, we're going to talk about A, B, C, D, and E, because I think that's a great idea.
And can we add a share button onto the event page where people sign up, so that it's easy to share it with other people? Maybe not.
So the member town hall is for members.
Okay.
I can talk to staff about that. We do share this with the entire OWF community in a couple of weeks, but this was meant to be sort of an exclusive for the existing member base.
I was thinking starting to get my head of security, sysadmin, and DevOps to attend, because we're
you mean folks within MIDEX, your organization? Yeah, they're welcome. Yeah, reach out to me or Esther. We can get that taken care of. If it's someone within your org, that's one thing. Or they can wait a couple weeks and see the video. And most of the stuff we talked about today has already been shared on public calls, but this is really our chance to have some one-on-one time with members. To be honest with you, we think it's really important. We need to spend more time doing it, just like we need to spend more time with the projects. So,
and my final thought is, you could put up a simple Mentimeter type poll during the call for people to fill in after each session, or ask people questions. So you can almost do a dynamic 3-question survey on the fly, which I think people tend to contribute to if it's easy to do.
And I can automate some of that within Zoom itself.
Exactly.
All right. I'm making a note of that for the next one. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate you being here. We appreciate you being part of the OpenWallet Foundation. We hope you're going to be also excited to work with the OpenWallet Forum and the public sector. And I'm already looking forward to our next town hall meeting.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the January 2025 OpenWallet Foundation Town Hall. We appreciate all of you attending. We appreciate you watching this if you weren't able to attend live. This video will be posted publicly in a couple of weeks. And we're going to send out an email to everyone who's invited with a link to the video, as well as I'm going to PDF the deck. So folks, if they want to grab these links and share them with colleagues, that's absolutely fine and acceptable. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Esther, for doing such a great job. And thank you, all of you, for joining us and asking the great questions and being part of this community. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and watch Zoom crash.